Hi, I'm Jen Hood. I'm the CEO and founder of Jump Gymnastics. And recently I've had the privilege of speaking at a conference in New York City, the International Physical Literacy Conference in New York City. What an amazing experience that was. And we thought it would be fun if we recorded the presentation that I did in New York City for anybody else who missed it or had some questions and wanted to circle back and ask me about it. So that's what this is today. We're going to go through the presentation and talk about everybody's favorite topic, how to build a meaningful employee engagement model. So employee performance management is what we're going to talk about today. And really this came out of the idea that there are a million great ideas out there in physical literacy. Like really, we're not short on ideas of great ways to get kids moving or the population moving and active and develop the skills. But where we're really short or where we fall down is on the implementation. And in order to implement all of the amazing ideas that are out there, we really need a small army of practitioners that can put all of that research and practice into, or the research into practice on the ground every single day. So how do we build that team? How do we motivate that team? How do we mentor and support the growth and development of that team? Is what this presentation is all about today. And so the first thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about what is an employee performance management system, make sure we're all working off of the same definition. So this is a continuous process of improving performance by setting both individual and team goals. And both of those goals have to be aligned with the strategic goals of the organization. And the planning performance, we plan their performance to achieve those goals. We review it, we assess it, we make sure they have the knowledge and the skills in order to deliver that. So we'll link to all of these sources in this video, but just so we're all working off the same definition of an employee performance management system. So the key thing here is that it has to be a clearly defined process for managing people that results in both the success of the individual and of the organization. So again, a process, a thought out, well-developed process. But more importantly, it's a partnership with shared responsibilities between managers, so managers that are responsible for coaching and developing their team, as well as the employee that's responsible for the growth and the development of themselves individually, but also the growth and development of the organization. And it's a process that connects both of those goals with the organizational goals to achieve whatever our strategic vision or mission is in the organization. So I'd just like to take a moment and reflect on what your experience has been like with performance management. So if you're a manager or if you've been managed in the past, what was your assessment or evaluation as an employee or of your employees like? Was it meaningful? Do you feel like you learned a lot in the process? Do you feel like it was really truly focused on your growth and development, supported your growth and development? Did you leave feeling valued as an employee or as a manager? Did you feel supported and valued? Was it a positive experience? And unfortunately, when I talk about this all too often, and certainly when we onboard people at Jump, the experience quite often is not that. The experience is quite often negative, and sort of disjointed or disconnected. And like, why at the end of the year do we just do this one weird assessment? And what am I supposed to do with that information? So we know, and unfortunately, as I say, so many people have lived through this experience, that without a really meaningful, well-developed performance management system in your organization, of your frontline staff that are delivering every single day the amazing programs that research has indicated we should be delivering, without that, it leads a lot of employees to feeling deflated, unmotivated, disengaged, often leads to burnout. And then we see a lot of turnover in our industry, lots and lots of turnover. You hear it all the time. It's so hard to keep, Saturday morning staff in my program or whatever it is. But it also leads to managers feeling frustrated at the poor levels of performance from their team, but also leading to their burnout and high turnover, because of course it's much harder to manage people if it's a different person every week that you're managing. So it's really critical that we get this right. But in our industry, very rarely do we see any of these systems really well documented or put into place. So I like to use this analogy to sort of drive home how ridiculous our current systems are. What if you were a soccer player and you joined a team and you knew that the goals of the team were to win the World Cup that year? You were, a top ranked player, let's say, and you joined a team because you're like, I want to win the World Cup. So the organizational goals are win the World Cup, and you're an individual performer on that team. So can you imagine if you played all of the regular season games and you did your very best and you know, all year long that you were training and practicing and playing games, but your coach didn't actually talk to you or give you any meaningful feedback. And then at the end of the season, when you finish the games and you did or didn't make the World Cup qualifier, then they did a summative review and they gave you some piece of paper and maybe did a 365 and asked your teammates and handed it to you and said, okay, this is how your performance was this year. You can see how ridiculous that is, because what we need is ongoing and continuous feedback and coaching from our leaders and our coaches in order for us to improve and implement day to day, which in turn makes that soccer player a better soccer player, but also helps the organization achieve its goals. Because if they're a better soccer player, then the chances of us making it to the World Cup are a lot higher. So that is exactly how we approach performance evaluation typically in an organization is, you know, I hire you as a manager. Why should I have to tell you what to do? That's just micromanaging. Adults should know how to manage themselves. You hear all of these expressions that people use. I'll just do an evaluation at the end of the year and write some feedback down because that's what I have to do. Maybe ask their peers to do sort of a 365 and hand it to them and hope that they can internalize that thought process and that feedback and then somehow become a better employee or person in the process. But really, that format is outdated. It's annoying for both supervisors and for the employees, and it really doesn't align with the expectations of our current young employees. So I know everybody gives millennials a hard time. They're not even the youngest generation in our workforce right now. But that said, I love working with them because they demand a better work experience. And one of the things that our youngest employees demand is that their employers invest in them and they want to not only contribute to the organization, but also in return become a better, stronger person. They love personal growth and development. And so if you can offer them that in their employment, it's a win-win for everybody. So if we're not going to do the annual performance system and not do anything in between, what the question is, what do we do? And so there's a few key elements to a really good high quality employee performance management system or process or whatever you want to call it. And there are these things. One, there has to be goal setting. So we have to really clearly upfront set the goals of the organization and share those with your team. It's our goal to impact 150 kids in our community this term. It's our goal to develop soccer skills in 35 players this quarter. It's our goal to fill it in. Whatever it is, set clear goals for your organization and then also set clear goals for each of your employees. It's your goal to attend 9 out of 10 shifts this term. It's your goal to become a technical expert and share that knowledge with somebody else on our team. Fill in the blank, whatever it might be. So we've set organization and individual goals and we've shared them openly and gotten excited about them. So the next thing is, just like we do in coaching, is ongoing feedback and coaching. So as that's going, we check in regularly. How's it going? Are we closer to our goals? We share the organizational goals and our steps towards that. Are we tracking towards achieving those goals? Are we not? But we also support the individual in that. And I'm going to add in here that we really integrate personal goals as much as professional goals for the individuals on our team, because we're whole people. We're not like the person we are at work and the person we are at home. We're just a person. And so if we've had people on our team that set goals around getting their driver's license, or that one of them wanted to take their mom to Tokyo. Oh, I don't know, whatever. So we support our employees in achieving their personal goals as well as their professional goals, because if our employees feel celebrated and rewarded and valued, then they show up as much better coaches on our team every time. So we have a system of ongoing feedback and coaching to help people improve. And then we also have the performance review and evaluation, which is the more formal process and a regular cadence to that. So those three components go into any high quality performance management system. Now, I'm hoping by now, those of you in the physical literacy community can start to see that there's a lot of overlap between these two concepts. So just a review, anyone who was at the conference saw this concept again and again and again. When we're looking to develop physical literacy in our community, it is an ongoing process of feedback and assessment. What skills do they have? What skills do they need? How can we help them get stronger, better, or more skills? The feedback has to be both formal and informal versus via multiple modalities. We tell people in writing, we show them videos of themselves performing those skills. We get them to watch somebody else. We get them to mirror. We talk about it. We on and on. There's lots of different ways that we give people that kind of feedback. It's a continuous cycle of learning and improvement because we know that over here, if we gain competence, then we have confidence, and then we gain motivation. It's a continuous cycle that supports itself. It doesn't ever stop. It's not like we give some feedback and we walk away and we're like, they're physically literate. We'll stop now. But it also ties together that preset criteria. So the criteria is in order to have strong fundamental movement skills, for example, or in order to play basketball effectively, or in order to move your body with competence, these are the skills that we're aiming for. But what are your individual goals as well? So yes, I can teach you a perfect cartwheel, but unless you're really interested in learning a perfect cartwheel, there's no point. Maybe you're interested in learning a perfect slap shot in hockey, whatever it is. So we have to align the goals, the preset criteria, with the individual's goals. So this is physical literacy. I think you can see where I'm going with this. The beautiful thing is developing a really high quality employee performance model is that it's exactly the same process. It's no different. So anybody in our industry already knows these thoughts and the processes, and it's not really a problem talking to people about why or the theory behind this. Where we really struggle is, okay, but actually, how do we implement this? Like practically on a day-to-day basis, how does this play out? So it's exactly the same thing. It's an ongoing cycle, continuous improvement. It benefits from multiple voices and perspectives and the feedback. It ties together fixed objectives of the organization and the employee's personal goals as well. Same. Physical literacy cycle, employee performance cycle, lots of overlap between the two of them. So how do we take this then? How do we actually set this up? And so we have 4 steps in our organization. This is where I'm going to go into Jump specifically and look at it as a bit of a case study of what we've done that's worked really well. How do you set this up and really implement this really strong employee performance model in the day-to-day operations of your organization and really get your employees excited and empowered? So the first thing is, as funny as it is, you have to decide on why your organization exists. That's your big goal. So at the very top, you can see your organization's goal goes here. And that's what we're all aiming for. So you have to decide on what it is. And it sounds funny, but it's actually very few organizations have a goal. So they have a mission statement that's kind of printed on the wall somewhere, but I don't know if we ever really refer to it. And when we show up every single day, certainly we don't ever talk about that. We talk about a whole bunch of other things. So really, for us, our goal is we want to raise the bar for grassroots sports in Canada. Everything we do steers us towards that goal. And if it's not steering us towards that goal, then we shouldn't be doing it. So that's the first thing. We set the organization, the why the organization exists, and we share that with everybody. So everybody that comes into our company consents to, yeah, I want to work for an organization that is the goal for. They know what it is. So then the next step, after we've established that and we've articulated it and we've been really clear about it, the next step is we establish why each role in our company exists. And this is where sometimes managing people gets a little bit difficult because we often create a role for a person. So we've got Janice on our team, and Janice isn't really great in accounting, but Janice is pretty good when it comes to human resources. So we're going to build a job around Janice's skill set. But actually, if we're going to truly motivate and develop a really strong team, it goes the other way. So we know what the goal of the company is, to develop or to raise the bar for grassroots sports in Canada. Then I, as the leader of the company or the organization, get to decide what do I need done in the company that will lead us to that. So I need people to teach classes. I need people to take registration. I need people to clean our gyms. I need people to do the bookkeeping, whatever it is. I decide what all of those tasks are, and then I group those tasks together. I'm like, well, all of these tasks are in the gym, so we're going to group those together, and we're going to call that role our coaching role. And we're going to call this role our administrative role. And we're going to call this role our facility maintenance role, whatever is relevant to your organization. And each of those roles, this is what's key, needs to know how their role impacts the goals of the organization. So they need to know their one sentence about why they exist. So if you ask anybody in the company or the organization or the school or whatever it is that you work for, why does your role exist? They should be able to say, well, I do this in order to raise the bar for grassroots sports in Canada in our organization. So as a note about that space when we're all pulling together, I like this graphic. It's sort of like a rowing. If you imagine we're rowing and we're all going in the same direction. So now we know where the finish line is. We know where we're heading. Everybody knows what their oar is for, and they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone's moving in the same direction. And then we talk about the things that really pull us off course. So oftentimes when we show up to work, we talk about anything but what we're actually supposed to be there to talk about. So we talk about things like somebody left the microwave dirty again this week, or I don't like it when so and so left their sweater on the back of the chair, or can you even believe it? I can't believe she did that. All of those things. So what we do is we talk about the fact that that's complaining, that's gossip, that's identifying problems without supporting solutions, that's not completing your tasks. Maybe you're just sitting in the boat and not rowing, whatever it is. So any of those things that take us off course steal energy away. They steal it away from us moving fast and efficiently towards whatever the goal of the organization is. And so the role of the leaders in the organization is to help people not get off course and to bring everybody in line with moving towards that goal. And here's how we do that. So the third step that we do is we define success. So what would it look like when you're rowing? How would you know that you are absolutely on track and killing it and doing the best job that you can? And so what we talk about is the fact that there's two parts of your job that make you successful, and we measure those equally. You can kind of laugh at our graph here because they're not equal, but imagine that they're equal. Anyway, we measure those equally. The first part of your success is about your skill set, the tasks that you do when you show up every day. Do you take attendance in your classes? Do you use props when you're coaching? Do you clean the pool deck when you're finished with your program? Whatever it is, the actual tasks that you are responsible for accomplishing. The other 50% of your success is about your mindset or your behaviors in the organization. And this is how we go about developing those with our team. We talk about, there we go. So the first thing that we talk about is how we measure our skill set or our tasks. So every single person in our organization has a task list. We typically break it down into weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, depends on what your role is. If you're a part-time coach versus, you're a business manager, your task list would be very different. But all of the things that you're expected to do, we list out for you. And then we make sure our training aligns with that so that you know exactly how to do the things that we would want you to do. So for example, this is from our coaches, keep the facilities clean and tidy between classes. That's one of the things you're expected to do. And you know exactly that that's what you're expected to do. And your training would support you in knowing what we mean by keeping the facilities clean and tidy between classes. So what we do at the end of every month is we ask our employees to self-evaluate on a scale of 1 to 3 how well they did those things this month. So this particular employee at the end of January evaluated how well did they keep the facilities clean and tidy between their classes, gave themselves a 2.5 out of 3. So we say 1 is it's developing, 2, you're pretty good, 3, you're so good at this that you could probably teach it to somebody else. Okay, February 2.5. Looks like by March, they're like, yeah, I set that as a goal for myself. I was really going to get better at keeping facility clean and tidy between classes, and they've self-evaluated themselves with a 3. So same thing, working with the head coach to do circuit changes in our facility. Looks like February, they nailed it, but March, something happened. And so after the self-evaluation monthly that our team does, they meet with their supervisor and they discuss their self-evaluation. And so this just brings up questions. And this is where I always pause to talk about the fact that this is a critical piece. We do not tie this to pay. So if you want your employees to truly be engaged in self-development, professional development, then it's very hard when their paycheck is on the line because they will not be vulnerable enough to tell you honestly what they're struggling with. They won't do that because they're just like, well, I just need to put a 3 so I get the bonus or my pay or whatever it is. So we do pay totally separate from personal and professional development. Those are separate conversations in our organization because it's the only way we found that people will truly be vulnerable enough to be like, I'm giving myself a 1.5 because last month I didn't even do a circuit change. Then we can have a conversation with our manager about why not? Why didn't you? Maybe there's a great reason for it. Maybe you didn't know how. Maybe you hurt your back and you need some support with ergonomics. Maybe your staff were sick and you were filling in and covering all of their shifts. There could be a million reasons why it didn't happen, but it opens up the door for a conversation. And if the conversation is, I actually have no idea how, we can step in and do skill development and support the employee with that. So their other note here is hosting monthly one-on-one meetings. So what those are is whatever staff member this person manages, have they sat down with them and reviewed their task list and their self-evaluation? So remember, this is 50%, the task list assessment. The second 50% is what I talked about in your mindset or your behavior when you show up at work. Many organizations that you'll go into have core values that they've written on the wall. So whatever it is, one of our core values is empathy. But quite often they struggle with how to implement those into the day-to-day existence of the organization. So they write them on the wall. Maybe you do it at a once a year retreat. You talk about how important it is to be empathetic. And then everyone has their own vision of what that is and goes about the day-to-day organization, implementing whatever empathy is for them. But the biggest issues we found with that is how I define empathy is based on my background and my experience and my culture and my socioeconomic standing and all of those things. It's different than how you would define empathy and how the person next to you would define empathy and how a 12-year-old would define empathy or an 80-year-old would define empathy. It's very different. And so when we go off of the assumption that we're all working from the same definition, it's really, truly not inclusive employment. And so instead, what we do is we just define empathy for everybody. We say in our organization, one of our core values is empathetic. This is how it looks in our organization. We just create a rubric. And we would say that in order to be consistent in your behavior to exemplify our core value of empathy, it looks like this. When asking for coaching, you focus on observed behaviors, not opinions. So that's a way of saying when I show up at my meeting with my manager, I focus on behaviors like my coworker was late 4 times last week. Not, I really think my coworker is lazy. That's what we mean by the difference between an observed behavior and opinion. Anyway, listen to others with good eye contact, demonstrate understanding, ask good questions. We see the world from somebody else's perspective, and we show that through these things. So we talk about exactly what we mean by empathy. We also talk about inconsistent. This is what we don't mean by empathy. This is the opposite of what we're looking for. And we show exemplary. This is like above and beyond. Again, this is something you could probably teach to other members of our organization. We do this for each of our core values so that each month, every employee on our team self-assesses on both their skill set, how they feel they're doing, and their mindset against our core values. How well this month do you feel you lived the core value of empathy? And can you give us an example of what that looks like? Every month now, we have an assessment process. So the very last thing is exactly that, the cadence of it. And this is how it works. Quarterly, our managers sit down and we assess what are your big goals for this quarter. So we'll use that manager's or that employee's example from before. My goal this quarter is to set up circuits perfectly and score 3 every month this quarter. Great, that's your goal. What else is your goal? Oh, I want to save enough money that I pay off my student loan. Okay, that's great. What else is your goal? I'm going to start running. Super. What else is your goal? I really want to be more outgoing, and I'm going to initiate conversations with parents and my I don't know, whatever your goals are. We share the goals of the organization. Okay, so this quarter, the biggest goals of our organization are to really look at retention and make sure that we're developing strong relationships with our clients. And this is how we're going to go about doing that. So we share both of those goals, the quarterly goals of the employee, the quarterly goals of the organization. And then Every time we assess, self-assessment, 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 check in with the manager monthly. How's it going? Are we on track? Are we on track? And then we do a quarterly, or for our part-time employees, it's usually biannual, because we just don't have enough data points when they're working 10 hours a week, whatever it is, where we sit down and again, we review. We've now got 6 months of self-assessment and 6 months of reviewed self-assessment. We've reviewed your formal goals, and now we're going to set some more goals going forward. So that's the cadence that we have set up, that we just do month over month. Every single person in our organization does this, so it takes very little time. We're quite efficient at it now. But then at the end of a year, when you're ready to do a formal performance assessment, and we're looking at growth pathways for this employee or whatever it is, we have 12 already documented instances of that employee's performance. And the benefit to this is that every single employee on our team knows unequivocally how well they're doing at their job every single day that they come to work. They're never guessing, I wonder if I'm really good at this. They know right away. So as I say, performance should never be a surprise. So every team member should always know if they're winning at their job, and should have some proof, right? Their performance shouldn't be subjective based on their manager and what their manager feels about them. They should have some framework that's like, okay, you might not like me, but let me show you I am hitting each one of my objectives, right? That prevents the employee from feeling that they are unfairly treated. But it also supports our managers with saying very clearly, this isn't about me targeting you. This is about the expectation that everybody on our team makes eye contact and doesn't interrupt at meetings. So it just cuts right through any of that subjective and brings it right to an objective agreement that we make. Your skill set plus your mindset is what drives your results. And we talk to people if they're not getting results in the organization for whatever reason, they're not delivering what they're expected to deliver. We ask them openly, do you think this is because of a skill set? Do we need to help you with training? Or is it a mindset? Are you really struggling with some thoughts that are holding you back from true success? And we tell everybody, for better or for worse, you own your own results. So at the beginning of this whole time of employment, we sat down and we were like, we have a job. Would you like the job? You said yes. And by default, that means you're responsible for delivering the results that you're committed to in your role in that organization. And so the best part is when you thrive, you own that. It's not because you had a great manager, but if you struggle, you own that. It's not because you had a terrible manager. So the biggest benefits we've found since implementing this system, it's much easier to attract, hire, retain amazing people. We have a lot of people applying for positions. Sometimes we feel a bit overwhelmed by it. I'm honored that that's an issue that we have. But the biggest one for us that it helped with was it reduced the number of internal issues and areas of conflict in our organization. We're all playing out of the same rule book. Everybody knows what the rules are in this game. And if there's any conflict, we literally open up the laminated rubric matrix that we have for values. And we're like, this is it. So no, it's not open to anybody's interpretation. We just make it really clear for everybody. The other piece I'm going to say about that is it allows a much more inclusive experience of employment. So we can hire people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, from all cultures, from all ages, genders, whatever it might be, because we make no assumptions that you already know what all of this language and behavior is in a professional organization. We just spell it out, which means anybody can come and play on our team. We also end up, one of the benefits is a team that feels genuinely invested in and supported. We hear again and again from our team that they're like, wow, I really, it's funny. The first 6 months of employment, quite often people don't trust it. They're like, I'm great. I'm really good at my job. But after time, their vulnerability shows through and they trust us and they feel safe. And then they're like, wow, you actually genuinely are committed to helping me grow. We have team members that are aligned and eager to deliver those organizational results and ultimately what that means is a better experience for our athletes, which is really why we're here. It's ultimately a better experience to help the members of our community become more physically literate. So if we can if we model that cycle with our employees, then they're much stronger at doing that with their athletes, and we drive better results in our community, which is really what it's all about. So in summary, I just wanted to show that the feedback loop for performance management is the same. It overlays really nicely with the physical literacy development wheel. And I just want to bring to attention that one of the things I find really ironic is we do this as coaches and teachers and rec leaders in our community intuitively. We do this all the time. We support the development of the individuals that we're in charge of supporting. We know the model of coaching and how powerful and important it is. And I find it quite ironic that for whatever reason, our industry really struggles to implement that for ourselves. That particularly, and I don't mean to single anybody out, but particularly high performance coaches have an attitude of, what on earth could you possibly teach me? I already know it all, and are the most resistant to any kind of personal or professional development. And so I've had the most success with showing it like this. If you're going to do this with your kids, I would expect you to do the same thing for yourself. All right. Thanks so much for joining along at this time. Thank you to Melissa, our marketing manager, for a beautiful slide deck. It was fun for me to watch all of those beautiful images of kids in our gym. And as always, if you have any questions, there is a QR code here that you can use to contact us. I love to hear your thoughts and comments. And again, a huge thank you to Sport for Life for inviting me to speak at the International Physical Literacy Conference in May of 2023.